Thinking back on everything I'm writing now, I realize how crazy my life has been within the last year. There's no way that's normal. Before my life got so out of hand, lying to the cops would have been at the top of my not normal list. Compared to murder and everything else that's been going on lately, it seemed ordinary now. So that's what I did. "I'm sorry. I don't understand," I told the detective, trying to sound confused. He slowly approached the table and took a seat. "I'm going to be blatant. I had you followed," he told me. "Excuse me?" I replied. "I had a detective following you ever since you left the woods. He made it to Augusta, but he never returned," he informed me. "And what does that have to do with me?" I asked. "Where were you on October 20th? "You know where I was. I was at my parents' house. I've been there for the past week," I disclosed. "And you never left the house the entire time you were there?" he asked. "I went to the grocery store and a few other places around town," I answered. "Were you with anyone?" he questioned. "Yes, I was either with my mom, dad, or sometimes both of them." "So you were never alone at any time?" "My father stayed home from work with me all week," I said. "Well, there was no one with me when I had to use the bathroom where I went to bed," I told him. "So you didn't go for a walk the first night you were in town?" he asked. My breath caught in my throat and my heart skipped a beat. How could he know that? Had he talked to the cop before I killed him? "Oh yeah, I did go for a walk before dinner that night. I needed to clear my head. I just found out that my best friend had been murdered." "I see," he said as he jotted something down on his notepad. "Was anyone with you?" "No, I was alone. But I did run into my neighbor, Mrs. Watson. She was out walking her dog. And also, my dad left to go to the store and returned while I was still out on my walk." "Did you see anything unusual?" he asked. "Like what?" "Anything that seemed strange to you?" he answered. "No," I replied. "So you never saw Detective Miller that night?" he questioned while placing a photo of him on the table in front of me. "I don't know who this person is," I said. "Do I need a lawyer?" "You're free to go at any time. You're not under arrest. Just wanted to ask you some questions," he told me. I stood up, and as I headed to the door, the detective said, "One more thing. The last time Detective Miller checked in with me was on the night of the 20th. He sent me these." He placed 3 more photos onto the table. After glancing at them, I imagine I must have looked like a deer caught in the headlights. They were pictures of me, in my brother's sweatshirt. The man must have taken them on his cell phone and sent them to the detective. "We'll be in touch," he said while holding out his hand for me to shake it. I wasn't trying to be rude, but my hands were drenched in sweat at the moment, so I just walked out of there without looking back. I'd taken a cab there, but I decided to walk home. My new apartment wasn't far from the police station. It wasn't in the best part of town, but it was affordable and available. It was basically the only thing I could find near campus now that school had already started. When I was far enough away that I thought no one would see, one lonely tear fell from my eye. I expected more to start flowing at any moment, but they never came. I didn't want to end up spending the rest of my life in jail, I thought to myself. Dad called to check on me while I was walking home. He could tell I sounded upset. "What's wrong, honey?" he asked. "I just left the police station. I thought they called me down there to talk more about Kate's case, but they were asking me questions about some detective that went missing," I cried. "What kind of questions?" "They wanted to know where I was, who I was with, and what I was doing when I was at your house last week," I told him. "They even had photos of me," I added. "Photos?" Dad questioned. "They told me I was being followed because of Kate's murder. They think I had something to do with it," I said. "What?" Dad replied angrily. "Honey, don't worry about anything. Me and Mom will drive back up there tomorrow and get you a lawyer," he promised. "Okay, thanks," I said. "Dad, I've gotta go. I'll call you back later," I told him. I was going to go home, but then decided to go into work early. I didn't really need to work. My parents paid all of my bills as long as I kept my grades up, but it kept my mind off of everything that had been going on lately. A friend from school had gotten me the job. I worked at the bank as a teller. Ever since that cop followed me, I'd been feeling extremely paranoid. I felt like I was being followed all of the time. Maybe I was. I wouldn't be surprised if the detective had someone else watching me right now. But I planned on being on my best behavior from now on. No more killing, and no more doing anything suspicious that would make them suspect me. "Hey, you're early," my friend Michaela said when I showed up. "I was at the police station. They had some more questions about Kate," I lied. "I actually need to leave early. Can you cover for me?" she asked. "Sure, no problem," I said. "Thanks," she replied. Work kept me busy until it was time for my lunch break. I'd forgotten to grab my lunch from the fridge before leaving this morning, so I had to go out for lunch. I decided to go to this nearby deli for a sandwich. I ordered my usual tuna salad on rye with a bag of Sun Chips and a can of iced tea. The bank that I worked at was in the middle of town, surrounded by shops and other businesses on a very busy street, so it was always very crowded around there. I had to squeeze my way past window shoppers and other employees on their lunch breaks just to make it back to the bank on time. This is exactly why I usually bring my own lunch. As I neared the bank, I saw someone I thought I recognized walking a few feet in front of me. "Excuse me," I uttered as I quickly maneuvered my way through the crowd and approached them. "Lucas?" I said, grabbing him gently by the arm. The man turned and stared at me, confused. "I'm sorry. I thought you were someone else," I apologized. Well, that was awkward. I swear I saw him, I thought to myself as I sat all alone in the break room eating my lunch. He entered the street from a shop that I was passing, wearing a dark-colored hoodie, black jeans, and boots. But when I approached that man, he looked nothing like Lucas. Had I imagined it? I had been recently diagnosed with anxiety, and hallucinations was a side effect of the medication that my doctor prescribed for me. After work that day, I headed straight home. I settled down, made some quick dinner, and then turned on the TV to the 6 o'clock news. A story about another animal attack nearby caught my attention. The victim was a young woman who'd been attacked and killed by some kind of wild animal. What was going on around here? First, I'm chased by 2 men from the bar. Next, attacked by stray dogs. Then my best friend is murdered. And finally, I end up committing a murder. I couldn't even picture anything worse happening. Before I went to bed, I got a text from Michaela inviting me to go with her and some other friends to a haunted house that weekend. She knew I was a huge horror fan. I debated about it, but considering the fact that I knew I could defend myself now, I decided to go. Begrudgingly, I replied, "I guess so." For months now, I'd been so afraid to go out after dark, but I planned on going back to a regular routine and trying to live my life. The next day, my parents arrived and we all drove to the police station together. The lawyer that they had hired met us there. He was escorted to one of the interrogation rooms to speak to detectives privately while my parents and I waited in the hallway. "So what did they say?" I asked curiously 15 minutes later when he came out. "Detective Miller is still missing. They haven't heard from him since the night of October 20th, when he followed you to Augusta. That's really all they said. They have no proof that you were the last person to see him. But I advise you not to answer any more questions regarding the missing detective or your friend Kate without me being present." "Okay," I agreed. My parents stayed in town for a few days and took me shopping to decorate my new apartment. That Saturday was the day before Halloween. After work, I stopped at the drugstore to pick up a couple of things and saw a display of Halloween candy as I was going to pay for my stuff. I stopped and grabbed a few bags. Why not hand out candy to the trick-or-treaters? Usually Kate and I would dress up and attend a party, but that wasn't going to be happening this year. When I arrived home, I took a shower and got ready to go to the haunted house that night. Michaela picked me up at 8 p.m., and then we drove to the amusement park and met up with our other friends. The park was ridiculously crowded that night. We got in line to buy some pizza, and there were two giddy teenagers in front of us making out. I turned my attention to the crowd so that I wouldn't have to watch them. I made eye contact with a man standing next to a bench. He was wearing a dark-colored hoodie, but there was no mistaking that face. I could never forget it. I turned to Michaela in a panic and yelled, "That's him! That's him!" as I pointed in the direction where the man had been standing. "Who?" she asked, staring into the crowd. "The man who chased me from the bar," I exclaimed. When I looked back at the bench, he was no longer standing there. No, I couldn't let him get away. Not again. I spotted a security guard standing nearby and raced over to him. "Please, sir, I need your help. There's a man here. He's following me, and I think he wants to hurt me," I revealed. "Where?" he asked me. I told him that the man had been standing next to the bench watching me, but he disappeared. I provided him with the description, and he put the information out to the other security officers around the park. I was upset and ready to go home after that, but I didn't want to ruin the night for Michaela and the others. She would have to drive me home if I decided to go. So after finishing my Coke and slice of greasy pepperoni pizza, we headed over to the haunted house. "Are you sure you're okay?" Michaela asked me on the way there. "We can leave if you want to," she told me. "No, I'm fine. I thought it was him, but maybe it wasn't," I said, trying to convince myself as well. "I've been seeing a lot of things that aren't actually there lately," I thought to myself. I slowly walked toward the haunted house, the crisp leaves crunching beneath my feet. The black iron gates were standing wide open, creaking in the wind. It wasn't a very cold night, but I suddenly got the chills. When we entered the house, it was dark and gloomy. I got tangled in some cobwebs dangling from a chandelier in the entryway. My friends laughed as they watched me try to desperately escape. I finally got free, and no matter which way I turned, I could still see and smell dust floating in the air. As we proceeded to the next room, their loud, high-pitched screams flooded it as soon as we walked through the door. Something had dropped from the ceiling, scaring them half to death. I was usually a very jumpy person, but not so much anymore. We giggled after realizing they were just ghosts. As we continued on through the haunted house, I was glad that I decided to stay. I was having fun. When we turned the next corner, someone in a dark hoodie coming the opposite direction bumped into me, nearly knocking me over. "Sorry," I mumbled. "Hey, do I know you?" I asked, staring directly into their eyes. They captivated me. They were crystal blue. My heart began to beat a little faster. I didn't recognize the man standing before me because he was wearing a mask. It was a red Chinese demon-looking mask with fangs protruding from the mouth, but that dark red mask made his eyes stick out at me, and I recognized those eyes. I'd only ever met one person with that shade of eye color, and they'd been missing for months now. He didn't respond. He just nonchalantly walked away. "What was that about?" asked Michaela. "Nothing," I replied. After she dropped me off at my apartment later that night, I couldn't get the man who ran into me in the haunted house off of my mind. I glanced out my window and thought I saw someone standing across the street. I blinked my eyes, and when I looked again, they were gone. I went to bed that night thinking about Lucas. Why did I keep thinking I saw him everywhere? I had a nightmare about the night that I was chased by those stray dogs in the woods, and Lucas was there. He saved me. The next day was Halloween. I didn't have to work, so I decided to stay in all day and watch the scary movie marathons playing on TV. At 5:45, I got up and retrieved a large mixing bowl from the cabinet to place the candy I had bought in. I sat it on the table next to my door and turned on my porch light so that the trick-or-treaters knew I had candy. 15 minutes later, there was a knock at the door. "Trick or treat," a group of kids yelled as soon as I opened it. The knocks became constant after that, so I decided to grab a chair and sit right next to the door. It was nearing 8 p.m. and trick-or-treating was almost over. There hadn't been a knock for the last half hour or so I assumed that had been the last of them. I sat the bowl of candy on the counter and snatched a Twix for myself. I got ready to make something to eat when there was another knock. I clutched the bowl and headed back to the door. There was a little girl, dressed up as a devil, and a man with her wearing a dark hoodie and mask. I realized it was the same man that I'd seen at the haunted house the night before. "Trick or treat," the girl said with a smile. I filled her bucket with a handful of candy. Then she ran off, and the man was still standing there, staring at me. "Would you like some candy?" I asked him. He didn't answer, so I grabbed another handful and held it out to him. He took it and then slowly walked away, glancing back at me numerous times. When he disappeared around the corner, I closed and locked the door. "Weirdo," I said. My phone rang while I was preparing dinner. It was my mom. She sounded scared when I picked up the phone. "Mom, what's wrong?" I asked. "They found that missing police officer," she revealed. I dropped onto the couch. "Okay," I said. "Someone killed him," she told me. "Oh my goodness," I said, trying to sound shocked. "Right in our neighborhood. His body was discovered inside of a manhole on Lilac Lane. That's only 1 block over from where we live," she cried. "Mom, it's okay. Calm down. Do they know who did it?" I asked, starting to panic. "No, I don't think so. But they said that they found drops of blood leading from a front yard to the street, and that's what led them to the body," she mentioned. "Mom, I have to go, but let me know if you hear anything else," I told her. I tried to relax, but I was scared just thinking about when the police might be coming to get me. I started changing into my pajamas, and while doing that, I realized that this entire time, I've only been thinking about myself. I haven't thought about the cop I killed, not even for a split second, or how his family must feel. It's like I have no remorse at all. And last night, at the haunted house, nothing seemed to scare me. The only thing I seem to be afraid of anymore is getting caught and going to jail. I couldn't sleep that night. Between all of those thoughts and me getting up every 10 minutes and running to the window, I had to make sure that the police weren't out there getting ready to bust through my door. I finally dozed off around midnight. I jolted awake and glimpsed at my alarm clock sitting on the nightstand. It was 2:40 in the morning, and someone had just busted through my door. I jumped out of bed and headed to the living room, prepared to be placed in handcuffs and hauled away for murder. "Emma!" I heard someone calling my name in the darkness. Right before I flicked on the light, I saw a pair of blue glowing eyes. "Lucas?" I exclaimed as soon as I saw him. A red demon mask was dangling from his left hand. "So that was you at the haunted house." "What? Where? I can't believe you're alive. Where have you been?" I asked him while running towards him to give him a hug. Then a man with red glowing eyes and a blue demon mask came bursting through the door and said,
"We don't have time for this. We have to go now."
"Lucas tells me the police are coming for you. Come on." And he grabbed me by the hand. I gripped it tightly as we ran out the back door. I vaguely heard sirens in the distance and police screaming, "Sheriff's Department." As we bolted away in the darkness, I could see blue and red lights illuminating my neighborhood. Wild thoughts began to race through my mind. What in the hell is going on? Where has Lucas been all of this time? And who is this other man? After running for what felt like forever, we finally stopped at an abandoned warehouse. Lucas told me, "We'll be safe here." After noticing my hesitation to the broken down building before us, he said, "Trust me," and held out his hand. I grabbed it and we headed inside. He took me through what looked like a secret door and down a set of stairs that led to a basement. I was getting more nervous with each step. Finally, when we made it to the basement, Lucas and the man began to remove their hoodies, and that's when all of my frustrations came out. "Where have you been? I thought you were dead. This is crazy." And how did you know the police were after me? He told me to calm down. I can explain everything, he said. As he was telling me this, the man behind him was taking off his mask. And as the mask slowly lifted, the light exposed his face, and I instantly recognized him. "Oh my God, it's you! Get the hell away from me!" I screamed at him. "It's not what you think. It's okay. He's with me." "What do you mean?" I asked, totally confused. It was the man who chased me from the bar. I pointed at him and screamed, "He started this whole nightmare!" Then he responded with a grin.
Huh. Long time no see.
Subscribe for a new story Mondays, Wednesdays, and don't forget Saturdays. See you next time on
Nina's Nightmares.
Really? You're supposed to click the like button, not me. Ugh.